my friends. Welcome to the metal shop. So, a couple of weeks ago, first or second week in May, tried to get this thing out of hibernation. Wanted to drive it, and I encountered a couple of problems. Dead battery off top. So, hooked up the battery tender here, got the battery rejuvenated, and then found that I had leaking injector, and I knew it was leaking just a tiny little bit last year after the intake project. Nothing terrible, but after sitting all winter long and the attempts to start, it was leaking badly. So, and I didn't bother filming this or making a video about this, but I tore the whole intake off and I replaced all the O-rings in the injectors. And shame on me, that was $14 in O-rings that I should have replaced when I did the project. But, I tore the thing apart. It wasn't leaking when I tore it apart. But something like that, you don't reuse gaskets. You don't reuse O-rings like that are so inexpensive. Any wear part like that, take my advice, just replace it. Just replace it. So I've kind of resigned myself between that, I'm working on the dash, that I may not get to use this season. I may have a lot more projects than I have seat time, and that's okay. So what we're working on today is the Breeze traditional hood hinge kit. And I really like this because it's like the original AC Cobras with the hinge, the hidden hinge that moves the body away, moves the hood away from the body. So there's our bracket. I made a couple of little templates there, and I'll get into that in just a minute. There's the hood prop rod. Now all this stuff came in bare metal. I had this powder coated. Now that was stainless. The prop rod came in stainless, and in hindsight, I probably should have left that alone, but I didn't. I had it, and that's fine. Hardware for the prop rod. I got the, the mount here for the Mark 1 and Mark 2 hoods. And this will bolt on the hood in kind of a traditional manner. What you do is, some mosquitoes in here, is I'm going to drill this, and I'm going to drill the hood for that series of rivets like they had on the original Shelby's, from the, to pinch together the aluminum there where they were splitting, and that's going to look fantastic. All our hardware, got our instructions. Oh, this is just and I'm not going to open this up, but that's just a beauty panel there that will cover up this area right here for those hinges. And you can see that I've got the hood pins here on my Mark II. These have to go away, and I think there's some pretty sizable brackets in there. And I was looking at those brackets right there, and I think that I could use the Mark IV hinges on this. But you know what? Honestly, I don't like the Mark IV hinges. They've got this apparatus, these dog bones with holes in it, and they use the two pistons, and the hood. I've mentioned this before, the hood will come up inside the body like this, and you have those two pistons there, and that's fine. If you like that, that's great, but it's nothing like the original cars. And Factory 5, in my opinion, is kind of getting away from, they don't really do the donor cars anymore. They're their own thing, and everybody's putting, brand new motors and Coyotes and everything else into these things, and they're just kind of getting away from where they started, and that's fine too. You can still make a hyper accurate replica if that's what you want, but to me they're kind of getting more into the backdraft territory where they're making their own car. Anyway, but I digress. So what we're going to do first is we have to drill out for this bracket here, and what you do is you measure down 5 1/4 inches from this joint here. And I should mention that this is designed, I talked to Mark at Breeze, to be installed. It's much easier to be installed when the body's off the car. I don't have that option. I'm not taking the body off to install this. I can do it. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. So let me get one of these. I'm gonna get down here, I'm gonna take the wheels off, and I can get to the bar that needs to be drilled right here. I can measure it, and it's gonna go something like that, if you can see that. The light's kind of washing it away. Oh, my flashlight isn't tough. There we go. It's gonna go something like that. We're gonna drill 2 holes here from the outside to mount that bracket. And the other thing that we have to contend with is that I have those panels, the sheet metal aluminum panels in there where, so yeah, this is gonna be some butchery going to go in there. I'm gonna drill those holes. I think what I'm gonna do is I think it's gonna end up with that bracket is gonna have to be persuaded to go into place with a rubber mallet. So here, just real quick, you can see these are gonna mount like this. There's a spacer and just a nut and bolt will go through there. But how these work is like so. Mount to the hood and it will swing very nicely away from the body, just like the original cars. And this is just it's just a nicer, more elegant hinge than anything else that's available. And there's some other ones like this, other manufacturers that make something similar to this. So I've yammered out enough. Let's get some holes drilled. My friends, so we're up under the wheel well there. You can see, hopefully you can see the process here. Tough, very tough to hold the camera. So we measured down 5 1/4 inches to center, tape the template on, and I'm gonna punch the center of those ovals there to give us the most room back and forth to move that bracket should we need to. So that is the process that I used, and then drill from inside the wheel well. I didn't even have to remove the tires. Kind of lazy, but there's enough room with my nice DeWalt here. It's nice and little. Goes right in there. So that's what we're gonna do here. Right in the center, we hope. Eyeball it, the old calibrated eyeball. And then away you go. All right, so what I figured out is the bar actually mounts like this, and there's plenty of room for it. There's actually a little bit of slop. I think when you go to tighten these up, this bracket is gonna bend a little bit. You have room for washers in there, probably even. Powder coating worked to my advantage here because it is holding the bolts in place. I want to show you the holes real quick. I know it's tough to go through blind to through the square tubing and get it straight, but the holes are oversized. I went a little bit bigger than 1/4 inch. Those are 1/4 inch bolts. Give yourself a little bit of slop. And of course, you see that white sheet metal screw there. Yeah, the original builder had the harness mounted right there in my way, of course. Not gonna be able to film this, but I think this should go in. There's plenty of room to move it around, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, so we're halfway there. Let me see if I can get you a good vantage point here. It's tough to see, but there, you can see I've got the bar in there, and I've got one hinge mounted up. It's hitting on the hood pin. I gotta take the hood pin off because it will not sit flush there. But I wanted to show you this. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see this or not. Apologize for my terrible camera work right now. There. You can see I got a grade 8 bolt there, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a gap where the bracket's not touching the sheet metal there. And I had to use a longer bolt, 1.5 inches versus 1.25 inches that came with the kit. And the only thing I can think of is that the bracket itself was bent, and it did come in bent. I thought I bent it back to shape, but if you envision, you got a crossbar coming here, crossbar coming here, it's touching, making good contact on the bottom of both brackets, good contact here. It's just there that it's not. I did run into, so what you do here, there's your hinge, and you have a pin here, and the powder coating is biting me a little bit. So I had to go after this here with a drill, clean the powder coating out of the hole to get the pin to go in, and I greased it up before it went in. And you're supposed to use 2 washers on each side. I added another washer on the outside when we were bolting it in there. Let's see if we can't get a good look. This is difficult, folks, I'm not gonna lie. Doing this with the body installed is hard, but you know, this is a retrofit. There we can see pretty good. I did a good job with my holes, drilling my holes, believe it or not. And then let's go over here, and there you can see with the hinge installed. So everything is bolted in place loose. I'm just gonna get this the last hinge put in, and I'm calling it a night. That's enough for this. All right, so here's where we left off. Got the actual hinge bracket. Hinge is installed. I tightened up the hinge bracket, and honestly what I did was I tightened that up in the hopes that it would pull it to this side, and it really didn't. And what I've got here is hard to see. The gap here is bigger by probably a ½ an inch or so, bigger than it is here. And what this is right here, this is the adapter plate that's just covered in shrink wrap. For the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, you bolt this, or you know, epoxy, or however, adhere this to your hood, your Mark 1 and your Mark 2 hood, because the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 hoods are pretty much, they're flat on the inside. They don't have any of the raised structures that the Mark 4, and I'm not sure about the Mark 3 have, but they have a spot built in where you can bolt the hinges right to. This hood doesn't have that. So what we're gonna do is that bracket, we're gonna bolt it to this, and we're going to use the rivet look of the factory SC cars, how they had the row of rivets going around the hood like this. We're going to use that. We're going to use 832 screws and nylock nuts, and we're going to bolt that bracket there, the adapter bracket, to this hood. I'm going to take these off, and I may, if these holes don't interfere, unfortunately I think they do, would have been a lot easier if these holes would clear where the hinges actually mount, and then, you know, that would just be easy to use the hood pin mounts there. But here, I'll show you what we're talking about here. This is gonna mount like this. Here, let's try and get this to fall into place here with one hand. There we go. And there we go. Okay, so it's in. Look at the gap. There, and almost nothing there. And that's okay, because what it is, I mean, it doesn't mean that your body's not sitting right. There's so many variables. You've got your structure underneath, you've got that bracket, I don't know if you remember, but it bolted nice and flush. The 2 bolts on this side nice and flush. The bottom one on this side nice and flush. The top one was pulled away. So there's probably 10 different variables that, you know, put this where you want it. So what I have to do is that hinge here, and I can show you on the trunk hinges here. This is what they look like, roughly, on the underside. And what I have is washers. I have 2 on this side and 2 on this side underneath. What I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to move all 4 to this side and push the hinge over. Probably both of them, both those hinges are gonna need to be pushed over so that this will be centered in the hood opening. Right, so can't remember exactly where I left off. What I have now is I have that adapter plate mounted underneath here and tightly bolted into place, mocked up with just one bolt on each side. I have the hood sitting right where it wants to be. And I've had the threads extended approximately 3/8 of an inch here on the hood pins. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna drill through that plate. I'm gonna cut off a bunch of threads here on the bottom, and I'm gonna use the hood pins as a large bolt to hold the hood in place. And what I've done is I went through with a large drill bit that just barely fits in the hole, and I kind of turned it by hand to mark into that steel plate there underneath. So what I'm gonna do now, so I think they're gonna interfere, the large hood pins and possibly these outside bolts won't interfere with the bracket that comes up from the underside, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I checked them out from the underside, and I'll show you. I think these two are going to interfere with the actual hinge bracket. So here, let's pop the hood off, and I'll show you what I got going on. All right, so I did end up actually using the drill motor just to give these a little bit more of a kiss here. I marked these from the underside as well, coming through the old hood pin hole. And there, you can see my paint pen mark right there where it will fall. It's actually kind of nice because it'll be sandwiched on the hinge itself. So we'll get lots of extra structure there. That's where it's going to fall. And on the other side, and I don't know, I may be able to, I don't know, I'll have to see all 4 of those other bolts coming through. It's going to be a lot of bolts in one place. And there, if you can see that, tough to see, there is my mark where it's going to come through on this side. Pretty close. And I mean, it's a 1/2 inch hole, so there will be, and I'll drill it to the full 1/2 inch, so that we'll get that little bit of extra cushion in there. So now comes, you know, just the pucker factor where just drill it. All right, you can join me after I got some holes in this thing. All right, so what has happened? The holes have ended up much too close to this top stud. There's no way they can both occupy the same spot. I think what I'm going to have to do is I think I'm going to lose this top stud. It shouldn't matter because I'm going to have a giant 1/2 inch bolt coming through here to hold the whole apparatus together. I should be fine in that, plus I have the other 2, which are fine. Over here, where the holes lined up, I couldn't really drill them. I drilled a small pilot hole and I ended up using a Dremel to make the hole, again, where it needed to be. You know, is what it is. They're occupying the same space. The holes in the hood are a fixed point. If I'm going to use the hood pins as a mount, that's a fixed point. They are going to be where they are going to be. And, you know, unfortunately, like I said, there are holes in the hood. So I'm going to have to take the pins apart right now. And I realized that leaving this underside on with those nylock nuts might have thrown my measurements off, but I don't think so. Because again, I measured from the bottom with a paint pencil and from the top, and the paint pen marks are completely gone. So what I'm going to do, I guess, right now is I think I'm going to cut down the hood pins a good amount and work the ends of them a little bit so that they'll thread on. I'm going to take those off and we'll go from there. All right, so we got the hood pins cut down and laid in place. Ready to go. There we go. I'm gonna pop the hood on. It's a moment of truth here. We'll see if it fits. And hopefully this is gonna be one of the last times where you have to monkey putting the hood on like this. We'll have a hinge. All right. No big deal. Right there. And we're right there. We just need to add a little bit of length to them, and who doesn't? So I'm gonna extend a little bit of threads out, and we'll try this again. Cool. All right, so take two. I've got all the threads that I possibly can have exposed in the pins. I got rags under there to push them up. So what I gotta do is I gotta get the hood on, and I have to get the snap rings on, and then we can adjust and tighten. So, moment of truth, part 2. Of course. Everything is being held on with tape. There we go, we got 1. And we got 2. Now, we'll go like so. And like so, hopefully, yes. Yes. And for the first time, we're gonna get very sloppy not opening hood, because it won't open. Well, all right, we're gonna have to fiddle with it here. Problem is it's cantilevering in there, so it won't open up. Has to be tight, so I'm gonna have to figure that out, and you can join me then. Right, so here's where we're at. I did run into a little bit of a snag, and at first I thought it was kind of insurmountable, like a deal breaker, but it really wasn't, and I realized what happened. Now, when it goes to open, it's catching right there. Now, what happened, what I didn't take into account was this was a lift-off hood, and it fits going straight on. It doesn't fit. There's a clearance issue right there when you're trying to tip up past that leading edge, and there's no adjustment. I looked, there's no room to move it further back to give you a little bit of room there. So it needs, I plan on painting this thing somewhere down the road. It needs to be body worked. You know, you need to this joint needs to be shaved off just a little bit. It is what it is. Like I said, this car was built with a lift-off hood, so that's what we're at. So you can see it caught just a little bit there. Doesn't really open quite as much as I would like either. Now they talk about you can ease the body line in here a little bit. I think it would need a good amount. They talk about, Breeze talks about cutting like a little half moon in there. I don't know. I think it's going to require a bit more than that. Tough to see. Apologize. The low light. I don't know where am I. There it is. Yeah, so right there, you can ease that a little bit. And like I said, they talk about cutting a little half moon just in the bottom, but I think it needs, you know, I'm going to need to cut into there considerably to get it open a bit more. So let's have a look. Can't really get a good side view. It's fine. It's, you know, it's not bad. What I'm going to do here is, now these screws, I got them all lined up. The 2 outer screws will go all the way through. And they come out there thusly, which is nice. What I think I'm going to do for the 2 inner screws, because they won't come all the way through, and you can see that this bracket is angled. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to get a tap. I'm going to use 1024 Allen head, stainless steel screws, bolts. I'm going to tap the inside holes there and cut the bolts down a little bit so that they'll just so that it'll look just right. So this side I'm already got going on here. So give me a few minutes and we will wrap this up. All right, my friends, been a long afternoon and evening and it's not perfect. It opens and closes. A little extra help. You got to stick a hand in here and kind of help it up a little bit. It rubs on that leading edge as we discussed. The Breeze hood hinge, not the fault of the product at all. It's just like I said, this hinge, or this hood, built as a lift-off hood. Lifting it straight off, no problem whatsoever. Trying to hinge it, not so much. I still have to do the hood prop, and I decide whether or not I'm going to ease this here. I don't have that much space. If I cut the little half moons here, if you look, we don't have that much before we're almost touching right now. So I may not choose to do anything there. You know, we're retrofitting this car, so it is what it is. The product is very, very well built, very well designed. I would recommend it. Somebody with a little bit better skills than me may have better luck. So anyway, as always, my friends, thanks for watching. Installation of the Breeze hood hinge and the Mark 1 and 2 hood adapter, that part right there. And I could always get another adapter if I wanted to try and do something different or get a new hood. I truly appreciate your support, sticking through me through this long video, and I hope that somebody else that buys this product, this video is truly helpful to you. So please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel. Please consider subscribing. Tons of good content on here. Give the video a share and hit me up in the comments. Still respond to all my comments. And like I said, truly appreciate the support. All right, my friends. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.